All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Movie Talks and Chill. We're your hosts. I'm Tony Serrato.
I'm Gavin Butts.
I'm Patrick Wall.
And in this episode, now we're officially done with all the scary stuff.
Yes.
We are in November. It's beginning.
Spooky, scary skeleton.
We are now technically kind of getting into the holiday season, I guess officially, although 101.5, the local station here in St. Pete, Clearwater area, they are already playing Christmas music.
Nice.
It
And
started
I
yesterday.
want to burn this station down. I don't like it.
Delilah.
I swear to God, if I hear Mariah Carey, I am going to freak out.
Yep. Oh, so
She's been released from her tomb. She's coming.
Yes, she has.
she's coming for you with a vengeance. They're coming for you, Gavin.
She's coming with like a Christmas wreath.
Yeah.
There's no place like home. There's no place like home.
Well, the newest Terrifier movie is based around Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
So that should be awesome.
That'll give the Christians something else to be mad about.
Yep. Hey, we got enough. But in this episode, we are going to be talking about a very specific movie. It came out very recently. I believe it was in October is when it premiered.
Around there, September, maybe.
Okay. So it came out, and then it's one that I've been looking forward to seeing.
Same.
And that would be Transformers 1.
September 20th.
September 20th. Okay. So it's been out for a little bit, but I finally got the access to see it.
Yes.
And then I said, hey, guys,
Legal.
Transformers 1 is out.
Legal
Yep.
access.
Yeah. Totally legal.
Yeah.
You can't prove otherwise.
Yeah. Prove it. But then I said, hey, guys, Transformers 1 is on there, and it's really good. You should check it out.
And then I watched it, and I sent a group text saying that movie kicks ass. Gavin, watch it so we can talk about it.
And I watched it. And now we're going to talk about something else. So
Yep.
anyway.
Yeah. All about grandma's.
So,
Yes.
good movie. Back to Terrifier.
You're back to Terrifier.
No, but this one is basically a review of Transformers 1.
Yes.
So why don't you go ahead and start, Patrick, because I know you're really excited about it.
Well,
I mean, his name was Patrick, but now it's Bad as a Troll. And we forgot to say spoilers.
oh yeah,
Yes.
we were gonna spoil the shit out of this movie.
Yes.
Just so my overall thought is, like what I said in the text, that movie kicks ass. Like, it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Really, really well done. The voice acting was good. The animation, the art style was really cool. I like how it introduced its own lore, but it doesn't really disrupt any of the other lore
Yeah.
that we've gotten from the movies. Puts a little fun twist on a couple of things, but it doesn't really like retcon like the Michael Bay movies or anything like that.
But
Or like several of the video games that come out. Because
Yeah.
like there was the one of the games I really loved, which is probably like 6-7 years ago, was War for Cybertron. Mm-hmm. And in that one, there's like the lore is that kind of like in this one where Sentinel Prime, which it was never a Prime, but he was like the liaison to the Primes.
Yeah.
So in that game, it was Megatron and Optimus. They were the liaison to the Prime, and it was Alphatron who was the sole Prime. And in that story, the backstory was that Megatron assassinated Alphatron and then wanted to take power for himself.
So, spoiler for this movie, it was Sentinel Prime in that role this time.
Yeah.
And then Megatron, who goes by, not BD-1, because that's from Star Wars.
D16.
D16. I always want to say BD-1 for some reason. He just goes mentally
Well,
insane.
it's because B-127.
Yes.
Bumblebee.
Yep. Well, I want to, before you get into that, I will say though, you mentioned like retcon Michael Bay stuff, but Michael Bay's movies never were really true
Yeah.
to the actual story.
And they never really like went back to like anything of the war on Cybertron. It was
Well,
just
Bumblebee
always
did, but that wasn't Michael Bay, if I remember correctly.
it was, yeah. But that was also like the last day of.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the whole thing. It was
No,
like
no, no.
them launching that the Ark into space and trying to save the populace or whatever.
Yep. So I would say Bumblebee, out of the live action movies, is probably the closest
Oh,
to the
100%.
actual cartoon, and this one would be a good prequel to Bumblebee, I would say.
Yeah.
If I would.
Bumblebee in this movie is voiced by Keegan, Michael Key. He's hilarious.
Yes.
He makes his own friends. One of them is named Steve.
Yeah.
First off, he killed Steve. First off, Steve wasn't alive.
I got a battle mask.
Yeah. So, look, I got a battle mask. Ask this. Knife hands.
It happened when this guy.
Yeah. It's happened with this guy. I've got knife hands.
Well, they did that one scene in the preview commercial that I liked that I really liked the way he did when he busts into the room. He's like, "You didn't have to kill her." He's like,
Yeah,
"Oh no,
these
they
aren't
were-
the bad guys.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't, right?"
Yeah,
And they're like, "No,
yeah.
no, no, no."
Oh no, this all happened like this when I came in, right? Yeah. This.
So yeah, I would say this is probably one of the truest to the actual cartoon. But even the cartoon never delved back this far.
No.
Yeah.
They did a couple backwards reversing's like in Transformers the movie back in 1987, I think it was, or 86. When that one came out, when Optimus Prime died, which was so sad for all
And
those kids.
Megatron died, and so then after he died,
He became Galvatron.
Galvatron, and Leonard Nimoy was his voice.
It was Unicron. Unicron was Leonard Nimoy. He was basically the big.
Oh, he
orb.
was Unicron. Okay. He
Yeah,
was the planet.
Yeah, he was the planet, and he found Megatron in space after Starscream betrayed him and shot him after because he was hurt from the battle.
After
of
he shot him
Optimus.
and threw him off the Astro train.
Real quick, Starscream in this movie is voiced by Steve Buscemi.
Yeah, I know, right?
And he is hilarious too.
Wild
like-
casting, but it
Yeah,
works.
I know. That's like, we're just going to throw this at the wall and see who says yes.
And all the rest of the cast was like an
Avengers.
Avengers movie that was
Yeah.
made now
It was
Transformers.
Scarlett Johansson, Chris
Hemsworth.
Hemsworth, John Hamm was
Yep.
Sentinel Prime.
Yep.
Um,
Still not a prime.
he gave himself that title.
Self-proclaimed.
It's like when a lawyer calls themselves Esquire just because they have a law degree. They just give themselves that name.
You practice real estate.
But in all the other ones, though, they only ever explained, if I remember correctly, the original cartoon. When they were able to transform, they were put through like a machine in the original cartoon, like the pilot episode. Whereas like this one explains that they need those cogs in order to make them transformable.
Right.
And that was also, in my opinion, the other hilarious scene when they first tried to transform.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And they're like, "How do we use it?"
I got no head. Where's my head?
And then what is it? What was her name? I believe she was supposed to be the version of like RC.
Yeah.
Later on in the cartoon, it probably wasn't, but she was Scarlett Johansson's one when she like slips up on herself. And Megatron was the funniest one, or D16 at that
Yeah.
point, because his feet get all pointy and he's just trying to.
Yeah. He's like trying to walk with freaking stilts, and then Bumblebee or B-127 is he's driving around the front half of him as a car, and he's still his arms are out. He's like, wheels, I need wheels, and then he just lands into this rock, and then all of a sudden wheels come out. Better late than never, you know?
Right. Real quick, since we mentioned all the other actors, I did want to give a shout out to Brian Henry, who voices Megatron.
Yes.
You might know him as Jefferson Davis from the Into the Spider-Verse movies, or Lemon from Bullet
Yes.
Train. Yes.
I better know him as Lemon.
Yes.
I was waiting for him to pull out a Thomas the Tank Engine reference.
There was a GoBot reference. Did you
That's
catch
true.
that?
There was, yes.
Pieces of GoBots. Let's get out of here. It was a subtle but pointed jab at the better cartoon.
And I'll tell you,
I love GoBots.
I was wondering how they were going to do his arc, because
He just goes mentally insane.
all through all the Transformers, like, you know, movies, video games, whatever. There's always been this, like, you know, the hint that Optimus and Megatron were like really close. Mm-hmm. And so this one, they went full bore on that. Like, they were best friends. They worked together. They hung out together. They punched each other in the face together.
Well, they did it in Michael Bay's one in the original, or the first I hate saying the term original, but in the first Transformers live action movie that Michael Bay did, when they're fighting, he does scream out to him when he's about to kill him. He's like, "You were my brother,"
Yeah.
or "We were brothers," or something like that. And they always, even in the cartoon, I think they always brought that up.
Yeah, they
You know,
always
it's like-
hinted at that, like through
Yeah.
any chance that they got, and so I like that they like actually delved into that, and then his arc to his transition was awesome, because like he laid they laid it out to where like, all right, he trusted the Primes so much, like the system, and it's like one of those like, and that's why they're both sides of the coin, because the system failed both of them. While Optimus saw the good in that, where the system shouldn't have been there in the first place, Megatron was like, oh, I trusted the system, I trusted the Primes, and they failed me and they lied to me. And it's like, so now I'm going to take everything and it's going to be on me.
Yeah.
So like, I like that. I like that story arc they gave him.
And they did it in a nice transition.
Yes.
Slow transit. Like he was a little.
Yeah, it was a
pissy.
slow trend. Yeah.
Like when he first goes to stop from something, or he's like, "I'm fine" or whatever. I can't remember what he says, but you see his eyes glowing.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And then slowly, I mean, they're still working together, but yeah, it goes.
When they
off
got onto
after
the
that.
surface of the planet, and Megatron's like, you know what? I'm glad you brought me here. I was like, you're gonna kill him, aren't you? You're gonna take him behind a rock and execute him.
Yeah.
That's what you're about to do.
So even that fall, that final break between the two of them was awesome.
Yeah.
Like the way that went down, because you saw him throughout the movie, and that was his line was, "I'm done saving you." Like throughout the whole movie, he was saving him every time. You know, I mean, Optimus saved him a couple times too, but it was more like he was the one that pointed it out all the time.
Yeah.
Like was it Darkwing when he was like, you know, standing up to him in the mines. He goes, "Don't worry." So he like stops his hand and says, like, "I'll punch him," and then he hits him,
and then he gets.
and then he gets hit. Yeah, he gets hit even harder.
He's like, "Look, my hand can transform. Guess which finger?"
Yeah.
That's actually the other thing I liked about it, because in the movies and the cartoons, you've always seen Optimus Prime as this very austere,
Stoic.
pristine, stoic, very. We follow the rules. We do this. We do that. This was a completely different version of him. He was breaking every single rule.
They basically made him kind of almost like George Washington. Like he was breaking rules, and he was still giving like inspiration, but he failed so much. Every time he failed.
But every other time you saw him, he was always Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
And so you see this, this guy, this larger than life figure throughout the cartoon, the movies, as being the one who's. It's a straight line.
Yeah.
But then you go back, and it's kind of like learning that your parents did things
Yeah,
when
right.
they were younger. And you're like, oh, okay. Because here he is, like, breaking into archives.
That's
He's
a
like,
perfect analogy.
you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
Thank you for that mental image.
Yeah.
What do you mean you stayed up till 2 a.m. and did speed?
Yeah. But that's what it reminded you of. Like, he's cheats and breaks into that contest, the race. When they get the jet
And the
packs.
vault.
And the vault.
Yeah.
I mean, every single thing he was doing was breaking the rules.
Yep.
Just because he was just curious.
Right.
That and he thought it was the right thing to do sometimes.
Yeah.
Like when they got on the train, like, we have to go to the surface.
Yeah.
Worst idea ever.
Yes. Yes, it was.
So it was really kind of cool to see the different sides of both of them. Like you said, with Megatron, he was more of a relaxed Air D-16 at that point.
Yeah.
He's very relaxed, but then, the way he gets angry. And then you get the Optimus Prime, who's more just, like you said, like an excited, curious kid, really.
Right.
I'm going to do whatever I want.
That's a perfect analogy on it. It was like, what's this do? What do you mean I'm not supposed to touch it? Okay, I'm going to touch it.
So if you think about it, then in the reverse flip, by the time they both become who they become by the end of the movie, they've reversed the roles. 'Cause
Yeah.
then you got Megatron is like, no, I'm going to do what I want.
Right.
And now he's the one kind of being like, no, I need to stop you from doing this, or I need
Right.
to protect you because you are clearly going crazy.
Because you can't protect yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like that.
I do like how Megatron's transformation is the original tank. And
Yes.
not,
The handgun.
Yeah.
But they did give him the giant cannon.
Yeah, on the right arm.
Yeah.
But I think it was in the Michael Bay movies where he just turns into some sort of plane. Not really.
Yeah, you don't really normally get to see it that well. I mean, I know he turned into a weapon at one point. He turned into a giant cannon, which was basically Galvatron.
That was Galvatron,
That was
yeah.
basically the version of that.
Yeah, because in the cartoon, it was weird. Like, he would turn into a gun and Starscream would fire him.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute. You're this giant transformer that turns into a handgun for someone else to fire. But it was like the golden gun in GoldenEye.
Yeah.
It was a one-shot kill. Didn't matter where it hit you. Oh, my toe! I'm disintegrating.
Quick shout out to Soundwave, who has one of the best lines in the movie. It's like, why should we follow you? We're gonna follow you.
Yeah.
It's Scarlett Johansson's character who just like smacks
She-
her fist into her palm. They're like,
Well, she also like walked around and like punched everyone in the face.
yeah. Like, why should we follow you? We're gonna follow you.
Didn't like didn't Shockwave say something like that too? Is like it's like, man, why she hit me right in the eye?
Well, that was when they first meet, or when they.
Well, they're trying to recruit him to go take down the Prime.
Yeah,
And I like how
Bumblebee's like Shockwave, Soundwave.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
guys got a thing with that.
Raise your hand if you got a wave in your name. And so like I also like the hierarchy that they built up too. So there was like, and just like in the Michael Bay movies, they had like, you know, there were these primes, not just one.
Yeah.
And so these were like the leaders of the Autobots, or not really, just the Transformers themselves. And then so they the Starscream is kind of ipso facto the leader at this point of the High Guard, who was the soldiers of the war, and which makes more sense why like they defected or whatever with Megatron when he moved to like, I'm gonna do this my own way. That, well, we've been tired of taking orders our whole time. You know, we're gonna follow you now.
We're gonna take orders from you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We're gonna take orders from the guy who doesn't take orders. Wait.
Yep. It's called a bait and switch.
Yeah. Wait. You gotta run before you can crawl. Scratch it. Reverse it.
Are you guys tired of working for somebody and following orders? Well, follow me, and that won't happen ever
Yeah,
again.
exactly.
Do exactly
Follow me
what-
and take my orders.
Any politician ever. Way to go, election season.
Well, it was also funny, or not funny, but it was also cool too when I'm going to use their names during the timeline of the movie when Orion Pax, who's Optimus, who became Optimus, gave D16 later on Megatron that sticker to put on him.
Which became the Decepticons logo.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine how that works. Turn a
Yeah.
nice gift and it becomes a symbol
And
of the hatred.
Well, also like
Don't they like arc weld it to his chest?
Yeah, they
Sentinel,
move it.
Sentinel welds his like basically traces it on his chest.
And there was an interesting, I was reading about that also earlier today, and they said, isn't it interesting because if you remember, it's, I believe it's Optimus that puts it on his shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't
Yeah.
it? Cause I saw the movie one time, but he puts it on there, and someone said it was like, it's a bit of a stretch, but it was kind of a, like an analogy for things. And he said when Optimus put it there, or Orion Pax at the time, placed it, he's like, so he could look at it, so he could see
Yeah.
it. It's a symbol of, their friendship, or a symbol of, something he gave him that he really wanted, that he could always look at. When they etched it onto his, welded it to his chest, you can't really see it. They
Yeah.
were basically taking that symbol of something good that he
And
could always
making
look
it-
at. Now he can't see it himself.
Yeah.
It's an awkward place. So it was just a fan theory type thing, but they're like, that's kind of interesting. I mean,
You mean he can't transform that chest plate up?
I mean, he probably could. I mean, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah,
They're more
right,
than BCI.
exactly. Yeah, the more than BCI.
I mean, you could still stand in front of a mirror.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I do highlight the primes in this movie are technically, like, in their eyes, superheroes. Because they all, like, Megatron really liked the legally distinct Megatron. He had a Mega name or something. Mega Prime.
Megatrion was the
Yeah.
prime.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, he's the baddest one ever. And that's why
Yeah.
he got the sticker. He was like, oh my God, limited edition of my favorite Prime? Hell yeah. And then they go to a cave and meet Alpha Prime. And then he gives them the cogs and superpowers. Because he has superpowers.
Yeah.
And a wolf.
He was a wolf.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a wolf.
Arr!
Well, and the way Alpha Prime walked, if you remember, it looked very much like
It looked like
the one guy from the live action movie.
the
in the second one.
SR-71 Blackbird.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah,
Jetfire.
Was that Jetfire?
No, I
Was
thought
it-
he was a Prime too.
No, he wasn't a prime.
No, he met him. He's like, a Prime? He's
Yeah.
like, or he was so
He
excited
was
to meet a Prime.
That was in the second movie when Optimus had died at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then they're using the Matrix to bring him Matrix of leadership to bring him back.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was glad they also did mention that, because that
And
was
I like that they went they used the Matrix from the cartoon.
Yeah.
And not the little weird freaking whatever cylindrical thing that Michael Bay
It
had.
looked like a
But they
double-ended
did-
knife.
But they
that-
did have they did say that this was you had to earn it, like and just like in the Michael Bay movie when what's his name
Shia LaBeouf.
Shia LaBeouf goes to grab it and it just turns to dust, so like he hadn't earned it yet, and so then that's why like when Sentinel Prime he had the Matrix and it just disintegrated off and just went to wherever no man's land.
He went into the core of the planet.
Yes, it
where
did.
the first Prime
Primus.
transformed himself into.
Yeah, like this went way back. Like the whole thing, like the first Transformer that came into being sacrificed himself to form our planet. Okay. Dang. Like so you start out and you're like, I want to be a planet and are you Ego?
Yeah, right. That's
Or,
really Unicron. Is
Yes.
basically what that was.
Yes, I
Basically
have a
Unicron.
penis, Drex. It's a pretty nice
I was
one.
thinking Mondo from the Green Lantern Corps.
Okay.
He was the planet that was had the Green Lantern ring.
Yeah. Everybody's got to be a planet.
Yeah, right?
I don't get it.
How could he sleep with your mother if he's a planet? He'd smush her.
But I also like to when Optimus does become full on Optimus Prime, becomes a Prime.
Yeah.
And after he got killed or shot, basically half his body destroyed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's floating around, and then they give him the Matrix, and then he reforms into that stronger, better version. I like that they gave him the
Stronger, better,
flamethrowers.
faster.
Yeah,
They give
yeah,
him the
his
flamethrowers
because
on
in
there.
the cartoon, like his exhaust ports came over
Yep.
and they were flamethrowers. Yeah,
Which has got to be the worst weapon to fight robots with.
right. Like how hot is this gonna really get?
Actually, it supposedly varies. So there is, if you go in and look up, like not like a wiki, but if you go into some of the other stuff about the Transformers, there were some of them that actually that was their weapons. So like the cartoons kind of just always made it guns with occasion. I think it was until the movie, the original
The live
cartoon
action.
movie, not the live action, but the actual first
oh,
cartoon
yeah,
movie,
yeah, yeah.
where they actually showed a few other abilities or a few other things that they could do. Because they're, like he should be able to have, instead of this one, he got the axe,
He had the axe.
the
in that one.
hologram axe.
He had the
hands.
axe, and Megatron had like the Morning Star.
Yeah.
So it was the spade ball on the chain.
But in the first cartoon movie, the 1986 or 87 one, whichever what year it was, in that one, that was the first time you saw them use a different weapon, and it was when I can't remember. I think it was Megatron or Optimus, one of the two of them when they were in the big fight before he killed them. They comes out with like basically a lightsaber. He
Yeah.
has this like plasma sword that comes out, and that's the
Yeah,
first
and
time you
I
ever
think
saw
like
something
he like
completely
pulls
different.
it out of his like arm or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like, when did this happen? I've been watching you for years.
First off, George Lucas is gonna be pissed.
Yeah. Laser sword?
Yeah. There's no space wizards in here.
The Transformers are the space wizards.
That's true. This is true. Yeah. For this entire movie, there have been 20-foot tall, walking, talking, transforming robots, and that's where you draw the line.
Hologram axe hands? But I like that. I did like that they gave them multiple things to use, and I think if they continue with that, I think the movie probably did very well. I haven't looked at the stats on it, but I think it did very well. Mm-hmm. I hope it did at least.
I mean, we didn't really help them, but
Yeah,
anyway.
whatever, shut but no, I hope it did very well to where they make another one.
Yeah.
And if that, then who knows where they can go with it. It would be nice to see if they start, I would say maybe speed it up a little bit in terms of like, they could fast forward a little bit.
Right, because they've all got most of the programming for and that was just like the live action ones.
Yeah.
So in the very first one, one of my digs was always like the fight between Optimus and Megatron. You never see. You see like three scenes of it, and it was because that fight would have cost like $20 million just to make all the CGI for it.
Yeah.
Whereas in the second movie, you see him fight 8 Decepticons in a forest, but they had already like rendered all of that CGI. All
Yeah.
that base work had been done. All they had to do was program in the motion.
But it'd be nice if they fast forward to do because I think the only one aside from Bumblebee, and I mean obviously Star Trek, aside from the Decepticons, but Bumblebee, Optimus Prime, and
Scarlett Johansson.
And Scarlett Johansson really it was Jazz was the only one you really saw from the original names that we knew.
Well, they did have when they were after the race, they did do a callback, and they said, "Dr. Ratchet, could you please report to something?"
Okay, so
And
that's
they-
what I'm
they
saying.
did
I would like to see that.
They
I
did
would
a
like to
couple
see
of
Ironhide.
callbacks. Yes, yeah.
Ironhide was
Hot Rod,
hot.
Wheeljack.
Hot Rod actually didn't come till later.
He was the only reference I remember him was in just the movie.
So that's why he was in. It was. You got to know the generations of it. I
Yeah.
can't remember them all, but basically they say Transformers Gen 1 and Gen 2. Now
Yeah.
it was continuous. So Gen 2 I believe began after the movie began. So
Okay.
it was like the movie, and then after the movie they continued the cartoon. So they brought in the regular cartoon after the movie was made. They brought back Optimus Prime again, but Hot Rod became Rodimus Prime.
Yep.
But they introduced, that's when you saw RC and a bunch of other people in there, was all from the movie there. And then Blur. Blur was always
yes.
fun. You're like,
Yeah, he was hilarious.
gotta find Optimus, gotta get here. Decepticons.
And you meet Blur in the movie.
Yeah.
That was his first reference.
Yeah.
I must have missed that one.
So he was the guy so when they were on the junk planet, he was the leader of all the junk robots.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it'd
And
be
he was
nice.
the one talking really, really fast and and you could only understand every third word of it.
So that's what I would like to see. I would like to see if they do a second one. Hopefully they do. Now that they showed clearly at the end of the movie, and I'm assuming it was Energon that was flowing.
Yep.
That they created all the Energon to flow through the planet to be
Yeah.
rich. And then now they're basically going to be giving them the cogs. So they're
They
basically going to
did
be
that
opening.
at the end of the movie, yeah.
Yeah, so they're
all,
giving
all the
everybody-
cogs that were taken that came back, yeah.
Yeah, so they're going to come back, but we didn't get to fully see everybody transform. So that would be a
Yeah.
nice pickup to the second movies. You get to see Ironhide and all them and Blur as they really are.
And you get to also see they reference it, but you don't see it or really. I guess maybe I don't really understand. Is ever since I came online, how do you come online? Does the planet just spit you out? Does the stork bring a bunch of parts that you put together?
well, you got to remember.
Is it is it like rooms to go?
Well, they're machines.
Yeah.
They don't reproduce as in the human race. does,
Exactly.
so they
They
are
have a
built.
Transformers IKEA.
Yeah,
Like on the bot-
Transformers IKEA. There's a screw left. Did I miss something? We've got a girl. Oh no.
The only thing that they didn't really hint on in this that they did hint on in it was in the pilot episode of the cartoon after they landed was in the pilot episode of the original cartoon Gen 1 they showed them they were just vehicles and stuff, but in the pilot episode when after they crashed on Earth and then the volcano erupts and they wait a million years or 2 million years or something they were there, and
Because
then
it covers over their spaceship.
yeah, and then when they're out there, a little, I don't know, scout robot thing goes around and finds all these vehicles and scans them, and then that's how it chooses what they do. So they did that in the Michael Bay thing where a Transformer has its own scanner.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
With Bumblebee, so they know what to change into, but
The most iconic scene is when Bumblebee is that shitty old Camaro, and then
And it gets up on two wheels.
scans the brand new Camaro that
Yeah.
was released 6 months before that movie
Yep.
came out.
Yeah.
Huge product placement.
Yeah.
It definitely
Yeah.
wasn't noticeable.
I remember them saying this is like almost $1 million prototype. We can't mess with this. And they gave it to a movie with there's explosions.
They handed
What?
the keys to Michael Bay.
Yeah, right. Yeah, don't mess it up. Sure.
well, they knew that they could afford to pay them back.
Yes.
Yeah.
One scratch. Hey, didn't scratch it. But what I'm saying is that's what, in this one, they never really explained how they get chosen to be what they turn
Like a
into.
motorcycle, a car, a truck,
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah,
like
they're
that.
just kind of they just are.
Yeah.
The tank.
And that's the only part I wish they didn't fully explain. Like I said, when they were on Cybertron in the pilot episode of the cartoon, but they explained it when they got to Earth. But it's well, how did they choose it on Cybertron? Because there aren't general vehicles.
Yeah.
So how did they choose these things? That's what I would like to
And
see.
all of the high guard was planes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like every one of them.
So that's what I want to see. I want to see in the second one, you see everybody transform, but also maybe
Like
then
how-
explain
yeah.
how it gets chosen and what they become.
So, quick update on the sequel. Apparently, it unfortunately underperformed at the box office. It made $125 million.
What was the budget?
147.
Now that's worldwide?
Yeah, that was worldwide.
Okay. There's still time. I mean, they have
Way to go,
months to
screwed
see-
them over.
Right. I didn't do anything.
Yeah, we just watched.
But that's not to say anything because that wouldn't be the first movie that lost money and made a sequel.
No.
Yeah.
Or multiple sequels. I mean, most of the horror genre does that.
Yeah.
It doesn't really make money, but it gets a
I want to know
following
how
and
much of that budget went to the actors, though.
A
Because there
lot.
was some. Yeah, I would say like that was that's voice acting for some big names.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made out with a few $1 million after 8 hours in a recording studio.
Uh-huh.
But then again, you got to think it's so much easier work for them.
Oh yeah.
They're
Oh,
not,
yeah.
They're not having to go into makeup. They're not having
Yeah.
to get stunts. They're not having
Exactly,
to prep. It's
yeah.
just, I mean,
They're
I'm not
showing up
saying
in shorts and sunglasses with their Starbucks.
You don't have to cry.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not going to belittle voiceover
No,
by
no,
any
no.
means.
By
because
any-
there
I
is-
can't do it.
No,
But
no.
it's 10 times easier than
Actually physically
yeah.
doing it. You don't have to worry about your
Chris
composure.
Hemsworth playing Thor or Optimus Prime, he'll go to Optimus Prime all day long.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, you can't pay me my Avengers salary? That's fine.
I don't have to sit in 6 hours of makeup to be Fat Thor. Fine.
Well, now, but here's where they're going to make the money, and this is what they always say about at least movies. Now, once they found out, like after Star Wars and Star Trek and all them, when they started, they're like, "Oh, this is a merchandising thing."
Merchandising.
That's what it's about. So it's like, really, a movie doesn't have to do well in the box office as long as it makes money on the toys.
Transformers the lunchbox. Transformers the flamethrower. The kids love it.
Yeah, that was the big thing with Star Wars. They let George Lucas keep the merchandising rights. And he made more money than that.
He had all the rights.
Yeah.
The filming and like the whole anything that said Star Wars was his.
Now it's Disney's.
Yeah.
But he's got enough money.
Well, yeah. Well, Disney paid him $4 billion for that.
And he had probably that before Disney paid him that.
Yeah.
with all his other stuff.
Yeah.
Just the residuals from the original trilogy
Yeah.
was enough to keep him freaking going.
Oh, and you know that son of a bitch has like a mint condition Luke Skywalker action figure in a box that's worth more money than my
Dude,
house.
he's probably got every one of them.
George-
every original. I mean, that was probably the deal.
George, I just want to let you know that my make-a-wish is obviously to go to the Skywalker.
Yeah.
My make-a-wish is for you to give me one of those action figures. So,
Nah.
Actually, you know which one you want? You want that not released Boba Fett one with the
Yeah.
launching
oh yeah,
spear thing.
Heard about
That's
that.
supposedly like there's one or two molding versions, not even fully done. Like it's somewhat painted.
You know, George Lucas owns at least one of those.
Well, he
And-
probably owns every single one because when they would do, I read the thing. I used to watch that show on what was it like? Not How It's Made, but like the Toys That Made Us or something. like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Or the Toy Hunter. There was one about that guy. He would go around and find collectibles, like go to people's houses. People didn't realize what they had. Oh, it's my son, old GI Joes, or like the original 6 foot tall ones. Like I will take those.
Yeah.
The one that would army crawl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they were talking about how it's made type stuff, and when they would do these licensing deals, like they would meet up with the film people or the studio or whoever was in charge,
And give them a proof.
and they would look
the
at it and be
co-
like,
the
"Is this?"
prototype?
Well, because they would have to give them like the costume designs and show them photos of the
Yeah.
actual people, because a lot of times they would make the toys before the movie's even made.
Yeah.
No, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you remember that,
So
like
at that
everything
time it
came
could
out-
be mass produced and then out like shortly after the film had been.
Yeah,
like,
if you see if Star Wars I can't remember when it got released, but
1977.
no, I mean what month though. So if it July maybe.
Oh.
But so you have a movie that's coming out in July, like a big movie like that, or any big movie, you want that ready for Christmas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
So they that's a lot of times what they did. In fact, going back to the history of like that kind of stuff, from what I've seen on shows on like How It's Made and stuff, a lot of times it was the toy line that ended up introducing the cartoon. Like it wasn't
Huh.
vice versa. So like I think it was Tonk or Mattel or someone had a deal. They were buying the robots. You see how Transformers actually came about.
Yeah.
In Japan or China, wherever it was made, and they had toy robots, and they looked at it and they said, "Oh, it can do this." They changed the names of them. They bought the rights to make a film. They started making these, selling these robot and things, and then it becomes a cartoon.
This truck.
So a lot of times it began as the toy, not the cartoon. But nowadays, movies are like, as soon as we have an idea for a movie, this is gonna sell.
Yeah.
we know.
Well, because you want the buzz to still be there.
Yeah.
You don't want to like come out with toys 2 years later. It's like, why am I looking at this? Oh, that old movie that I watched 2 years ago.
I love when they come out with the knockoff toys. Like instead of
yeah.
Shrek, you got Shrunk
Yeah.
and Funky.
Oh, you mean everything at Spirit Halloween?
Yeah.
Yep.
Jedi is just is space
Space
wizard.
wizard.
Yeah.
Literally, just space wizard.
Jed.
Yeah, it's just Jed. No,
The banana costume says legally distinct, not a banana.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, Star Wars was released on May 25th.
May. Okay.
1977.
Actually, May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. But yeah, so if you do something in May or anytime during the year, you want to be ready for Christmas. That's the ultimate goal for anybody who's making movies. That's probably another reason why a lot of movies don't come out during dump months, big movies, is because it's probably too close to that to be able to mass produce anything.
yeah.
But I got a feeling the toy line is going to sell with this one.
We'll see.
I mean,
it's
it
already...
sells with every other movie they've done or show.
Yeah, that's true.
And it'd be kind of cool because especially if you're an avid Transformers collector, and I've watched some shows where there have been some guys that are women too, an avid collector of one specific thing, whether it's multiple things. Like there was one guy that the toy person went to, and it was Transformers all day long. He had every version of every generation. He had just a room of every Transformer you could think of, and he had like multiple versions. So he had like one that was multiple ones that were in the box still, brand new, never been opened, still had that little tab on the top where they
Yeah.
normally would hang on there, which apparently, for those of you kids who want to collect something, if you find one that has that on there, keep it on there.
Don't rip it off.
Apparently, that little piece of cardboard, that little tab not punched out, on some cases has made the difference of hundreds, if not thousands of dollars.
Wow.
Damn.
Because it is considered extremely pristine and untouched.
We welcome you to our toy talk.
Yes. Hey, we give tips too.
That's right.
And again, I've learned all this stuff just by watching these things, so it's not personal experience, but
There's an old TCL show, basically where wives would go to
You mean
different
TLC?
that one, TLC, where wives would swap houses for like a weekend. And one episode I saw, she's like, oh, I'm a big Star Wars fan, so like the producer set up like, oh,
it was
you're gonna
wife
go-
swap.
that one. Yes. So the producer's like,
Who watched it? Me or you?
were you in the movie?
yeah, the only people who haven't seen Star Wars is the people who were in Star Wars because they were living
lived
it. But no, so the producer's like, oh, we found a local Star Wars group. You can go hang out there. So she shows up and she's in her late 40s and everyone's in their early 20s and they're literally like showing off all their collectibles and they're all like, who's this chick? What's she doing here? And they're like, are you a real fan? She's like, yeah. They're like, when did you see the movie? Oh, in theaters in 1977. They all just clapped.
Yeah.
Well, okay then.
I like Star Wars before it was cool. Get it?
No further questions, Your Honor.
Yeah. The defense rests.
Yeah, all the 20-year-olds shut their damn mouths at that moment.
But I think it would be kind of cool to see what these toys would look like.
Yeah.
And they could do so many different versions of it. They could do, because when toys come out, they don't just make the one. They have to make like certain versions of it.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to see the one, like they'd probably have
One
one,
that
where it's
fully
like,
transforms.
Yeah,
one that
like
stands
messes up.
alone and moves.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
And then like the transition transformer, doesn't have the wheels out.
Yeah, right.
I got no wheels. Where's my wheels?
My wheels. I need wheels.
Or like Optimus losing his head.
Yeah.
Where's my head?
This is Headless Optimus.
Can we talk real quick? What was up with the chick named Arachnid? Why was she the only one that was an animal and not a car or a vehicle?
Well, that was the thing. It was like the callback to the
Beast
Insecticons.
Wars.
Insecticons.
Oh,
Yeah.
Insecticons.
And so Insecticons were in Beast Wars.
Oh, okay.
Well, they were before that.
They were before that.
They
too.
were later on too, but they came like the Insecticons was like Insecticons, Dinobots. Those were more like Gen 2, Gen 3 of the cartoons. And mind you, these generations, you say generation, it sounds like a long time. We're talking a couple of years difference.
Yeah.
So it's
get that.
like Gen 1 was like 1984 to 86. And then the movie came out and then it's 86
and
to
then it was
88.
also more like just like you could also do it as like seasons. Like this
Yeah.
could be like season 1 that ran for
Yeah.
2 years, and this was season 2 that ran for 3 years, whatever.
Yeah, because I believe, if I
Because
remember
the
correct-
artists, they would switch those artists too.
Yeah, because that's when you had. I think the first introduction was right before the original movie came out, the cartoon movie. In the cartoon, they had the Constructicons.
Yep.
And then in the movie, they really highlighted them.
Yeah.
And then they put them together. And then after that, there became multiple forming machines on both sides. So it wasn't just the Constructicons anymore. There was like, I can't even remember the name of them, but there's multiple groups of Decepticons and Autobots that would have these group forming into bigger robots. But that was as the generations came on. So like,
That was
Dinobots
like them
were there.
trying to do to go into like Tron, or not Voltron, because that was like when that was starting to hit the U.S.
Yeah.
Because it had already had its time. Like I think it hit the U.S. in the late '80s, maybe Voltron, but it was like early '80s in Japan.
Yeah.
It's just like Dragon Ball Z. Like they had their stint over in like Japan and China and like the Asian market, and then America picked it up, dubbed it over. And it was like, oh, look at this new cartoon.
It's the same thing with Power Rangers. And the only part that's American is all this when they're at school and not in their uniforms. But whenever they're in your uniforms or in the Megazords or anything, that is ripped straight from Japan.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we only have to do half the work for this show.
Well, most of them too. So Transformers, Voltron, GoBots, and a lot of the other cartoons originated in Japan. And what these guys would do is these companies were like, hey, we need like Mattel or Tonka or Hasbro. They would go over and see what they had. And basically these companies, they made their own products. Like it was for their own cartoon, but they allowed us to buy the license or take ownership of it, American ownership of it, and we could do whatever we wanted with it. They would just kind of give us the base molds of it and say, like, I can't remember what the original one was, but the guy that was Megatron and Optimus Prime, like they were all different names and they looked slightly different in Japan.
Oh, okay.
So they allowed us, they just gave us a basic molding. We could do whatever they want. Or they may have actually had it manufactured over there and just said, what do you want this to be called?
Yeah.
How do you want it to look? And they would give it to us and then we would make our own version of it.
Because remember, back then it was shipping and handling.
Yep.
It shipped from somewhere.
Yep.
So I just want to say I did Google Transformer 1 toys. They look cheap, not gonna lie. So for any of our listeners out there, take a look and let me know what you think. But these do not look like who remembers the name KB Toys?
Yeah.
I do.
I was a shift manager there in college.
Who remembers Toys R Us?
I do.
Lionel Playworld.
That I don't.
You don't remember Lionel?
Nope. Never had that.
Oh man!
Or at least
so
where
that
I
was it used to be. It was Toys R Us before KB Toys. I mean, KB Toys was around, but the two because KB Toys was a lot more like in the mall.
Yeah.
It was a store in the
Yeah,
mall.
it was usually like a
Now
slot.
a movie theater.
Yeah, and I like KB Toys, but Toys R Us and Lionel Toys, they were basically like big standalone buildings. So basically, you'd walk into one that was the size of Best Buy. And they were all big, their own standalone. So those two were like huge competitors. KB Toys, again, they wanted a lower overhead.
And back then, they actually spelled out K and B. It was KAYBEE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were all competitors, but yes. But the thing is, though, all the toys now, they're all looking cheaper and cheaper because they're all purely plastic. If you remember the original Transformer toys, those
They
things
were metal.
They were die-cast metal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you could ram Optimus Prime into a wall multiple times.
And the wall would fall before he would.
And the best part about it was, it's like, as a kid, as a young boy, and you're playing, making them fight. So, like, if you hit one of them, they got a scratch on it. It was kind of like a battle scar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is kind of cool. And sometimes it would, like, etch into it a little bit. So you're like, yeah. Now he's
And then it
Optimus.
cut your hand every time it picked it
And
up.
you're like, no.
And you were happy.
Yeah. Those were the toys that you could step on, and the only thing that was going to hurt was your foot.
Yeah.
You were not going to break the toy.
Lego's product design since the 50s.
Oh,
But now everything, because like after Michael Bay's movie came out, they were Transformers. I went and I was like, oh, I want to for old time's sake, I want to buy an Optimus Prime. First of all, the way they were designed in the movies, transforming that thing took like an hour. It was no quick thing, and it was a very complicated thing to do. Not like it was when you were a kid, where it's like pop, 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 pop. Still
Right.
look cool, but it was pretty easy to do. No, this thing took like 20, 30 minutes. It had 50 steps. I remember the instructions, but it was all plastic. So if you accidentally pushed a little too hard on one thing, you
Snap.
broke it.
Yep.
Yep. And you paid $40 for this thing.
But so
Thanks, America.
Oh,
So-
and if you real quick, if you do remember too, on the old Transformer toys when they were die-cast metal, they actually had rubber for the tires.
Oh yeah, for the
Yep.
tires. Yeah,
That was
yeah.
awesome. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so in my mind, these look pretty cheap, but I want to hear what the listeners have to say. If you bought one, let us know, or if you just Google it like I did, what do you think? I want to hear your reactions, because personally, I think these look like garbage.
Hey, look at it. Look, they're panicking. They ain't gonna be able to get that. They ain't gonna be able to buy that GI Joe with a kung fu grip. I see them. They panicking.
But these are actually easier to make because their structures are much simpler.
Yeah,
Even simpler than the original cartoon, I think. That's my thought on it. You know, it's like, making a Megatron, you just basically need a tube for a shoulder,
yeah.
an open kind of place for a chest piece, and then,
Yep.
the rest of it's just a couple legs, So I think it's still going to sell, though. I got a feeling.
We'll see.
And guess what holiday's coming up in about
Christmas.
2 months? A month and a half, 2 months. So, yeah, they knew what they were doing.
Yep. I wonder which Optimus is gonna do the finger though.
For the way society's going,
Like-
I'm not making a judgment on it. I'm just saying the way
The
society
hand,
is.
the
they're not
hand
gonna
is
let
one
that
piece,
happen.
but there's the finger that pops up.
That's only going to be at Spencer's Gifts. You're not going to be allowed to sell.
Yeah,
it.
yeah, right.
If Spencer's Gifts
I
still
will say
exists,
there
I don't
is
know.
a version of the Bumblebee toy that has one of the knife hands,
Nice.
and it looks awful. And
Maybe not so nice. I don't know.
It looks ungoddamn
Oh, yeah.
delightful.
Yeah, it's very, very simple.
Yeah.
But it kind of reminds me. So if you remember the original Bumblebee toy, first of all, that one was about this big. If you remember the original toy one, it was like,
He was tiny.
yeah, it was like you had popped two things out, but it was basically like that.
And the beetle hood never went anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
It just sat like on his chest.
Yeah. Yeah, because really all it was you pulled
Like,
it out.
lift
It was the
that up.
legs.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you pulled the back out. That's where the legs came out, and then you pop part of the front and reverse
Like,
the back
twist
of the
it,
head.
yeah, yeah.
And then the arms just kind of slid out. It was the simplest transformer.
like those
Transformer. It was
McDonald's Transformers,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
like
Yeah.
the old Fry and Coke cup and
Yep.
everything,
Yep.
turned into Grimace. They
Yeah.
all turned into Grimace.
They all turned into. But there were some Transformers in the original toy line that were very, very simple. Mm-hmm. And then there were some that were a little bit more complicated.
Starscream was a nightmare. But he turned-
Megatron wasn't that easy.
Yeah,
either.
and Megatron was not easy either. No.
The gun, I mean, that thing was not the simplest thing. That was like, and that thing was heavy.
But I mean, like, what better product placement for the U.S. Air Force?
Yeah.
Hey, do you have something that could transform into a F-14 Tomcat?
the only problem with the Megatron toy as the gun, which was highly panned when it sold because it was a gun, even though it was at a time when you could buy cap guns at like a
Yeah.
regular drugstore and it was considered cool.
They sold candy cigarettes.
Yeah, I used to have some. My grandmother would have her smokes and I would have mine.
I remember playing T-ball as a kid with Big League Chew bubble gum.
That stuff was the best.
Right? It was so great and yet so terrible.
But the problem with that toy was, well, number one, it was complicated. But if you're actually trying to play a game where you're really fighting, okay, you had Optimus, which Optimus came up to about this tall, if I remember correctly, by the time he stood up. And Megatron was like this big. Like the actual toy. It's like, you
Right.
could. So I think they actually sold a separate Megatron that was like small. Like this one was meant to be that for the toy line. But you actually had to get a smaller version of Megatron if you wanted it to be realistic. Either that or it was basically like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles version of Megatron.
That would so after I watched Transformers 1, I went back and watched the original, the first Michael Bay Transformers 1. And Optimus Prime, size of a 2-story house, but every shot of Megatron, he's 4 stories tall. That dude is huge.
Yeah.
So talking like, it sounds like that might have been a little bit of an homage to the original.
But
like,
when they fight, they're about the same size.
Yeah.
If you look at them.
which is stupid weird.
But then again, in the cartoon, he was a giant robot and turned into a little gun that somebody could hold.
Yeah, exactly.
Soundwave turned
that's
into
someone
a
else.
cassette.
Suspension of disbelief.
Hey, he was a boombox. He spit out cassettes, which I'm surprised that they didn't do in the movie.
Oh, he didn't have one? I thought he did.
He had like the
he
chest
had-
was still was there.
Like a
he
tape
but
player.
he didn't, yeah,
He didn't
Okay.
it
play
didn't-
anything.
Right.
Okay.
Because he had the tape player and then
Yeah.
like still like the little cannon.
Because
on
it
his
was
shoulder.
Laserbeak was one of the cassettes.
Uh-huh.
It was like a pterodactyl.
Laserbeak and Ravage.
Yep, Ravage.
Ravage.
Megatron. Autobots approaching.
No.
Fun times.
Fun times.
I would like to find, because I heard there's a museum somewhere that actually has a collection of all like vintage toys, like in cases.
Oh.
I mean, they're opened up. You know, it's like they collected them. I would like to go see that sometime. But it's a variety of every type of toy. It's you got Star Wars in there. You got Transformers,
G.I. Joes.
GI Joes. You got GoBots. You got Thundercats. You got every other thing. Mask. I'm trying to. There's so many I can't. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
I mean,
Legos.
Ghostbusters, Legos, like anything that had an action figure was basically everything.
Reminds me of the science fiction museum in Seattle. Have you ever been to that?
I wanted. Yes, actually I have because I saw like they had the proton packs and stuff in there and the Back to the
It's
Future
all
stuff. Yep.
props from sci-fi. It was started by the co-founder of Microsoft, and he's like, I want to create a rock and roll and science fiction museum. And he's got like 3 Jimi Hendrix guitars in there, and every sci-fi TV show and movie prop you can think
They
of.
were doing a Back to the Future like showing that day, or not a show, not for the movie, but like where all people bring their collectibles. So it was like nothing but lines of DeLoreans outside, all open, made to look like the movie. Some had
Worst car ever made.
some had the Mr. Fusion, some had the plutonium one, some had the actual rods sticking out, which I don't know how safe that is to do.
Yeah, right. Like,
Yeah, that
how
can't
is
be
this
illegal.
street legal?
Yeah, but they had the hoverboards in there, so basically anytime you see it. But I got there, I sat in the Borg chamber,
Do those
or I stood in the
hoverboards
Borg
actually
chamber
hover?
and
No,
sat.
they don't.
But no, that's actually pretty cool. It might. I don't know if it's in Seattle. I got to find out where it's at, but I would actually like to see that. That would be a fun museum to go see.
We'll see if they can let us do an episode up there.
Yes, we could do a full on like get someone or not a GoPro, but get an actual camera to have us maneuvering around with. We need a film crew now.
Yep, we're getting that big.
Hey, Doug and them love that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, they
So
do,
they
yeah.
may be like, hey man, we'll come out with you.
There
We'll
are 3
produce it.
vintage toy museums in the Tampa Bay area.
In the Tampa Bay area? Well, we don't have to go far at all.
There's one in Tarpon, one in Tampa, and one in Sarasota.
Where in Tarpon?
That is called the Bear Haven Land Company Vintage Toys.
Okay, and it's an actual museum, or is it
Yeah.
just selling like vintage toys?
This one looks like it's just selling vintage toys.
See, I want to go to like a museum where it's set up and they have them all nicely pristined up.
Then you want to go to the Sarasota Toy Museum.
Okay.
Ah, Sarasota.
Sarasota.
Maybe we can go visit one of our friends that recently moved down that way. Make a golf weekend out of it.
It's Sarasota, not Sarasota.
Duh. So duh.
Sarasota.
But we are almost out of time. We got about another minute or two left. So, any final thoughts on Transformers 1?
My question was, what was up with all the growth on the planet? Like, I really like how they did the surface of a mechanized planet and it being, alive, like the mountains move, they reform and then come back. But like where they go to the Cave of the Primes, where they were, all the bodies were, like there was grass growing.
Yeah.
And
There's even a throwaway line to that effect. They're like, what is this stuff? Like, it's not metal. And then they just forget.
And it was like some kind of organics, and that's it.
Maybe
with the
they're
robot
hinting at
deers.
something for the next movie.
Yeah,
Maybe it's an Easter egg for number 2.
I
Hopefully.
guess
They'll have
because like the
But also, he's a growing planet. He's going to get fur in strange places.
that's true. As soon as gonna start getting hair in funny places and thinking about girls, but
On that note,
Every 3 or 4 million years, the planet just takes that special little turn.
yeah.
yes, Drax, I do have a penis.
All right.
But to answer your question, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. This movie is awesome.
yeah,
Yes. Transformers 1, I give it 2 thumbs up for number 1.
I give it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I would give it that too. But hoping they do make a second one and hoping they do go into a little bit more backstory to kind of explain, like I said, why they turned into what they do, but maybe explain that in the new version of it, so we'll see. You never know, but we'll also keep an eye on updates on the toy sale market around Christmas time. I want to see what that number looks like. Because I guarantee you that's going to be the deciding factor if they make another movie next
Yep.
year.
There.
They'll probably be like, you know what? All right, we'll do this again.
Lost $20 million on the movie, made $200 on the toy sale.
Yep. You do the math.
Yeah.
But that is all the time we have for this episode talking Transformers 1. Again, very good movie. As always, continue to listen to us. We will be, as we're approaching the holiday season, we will have holiday type themed episodes and then some other ones. We might want to do a trivia one soon, too.
Yeah.
Coming up. We always
Ooh,
kind of do
that's a
that
good
every
one.
6 months.
Yeah.
Because
So-
we are all tied with 1 a pop.
Yep. So maybe we'll do that in the next month or so and
Yeah, that'd
kind of
be
see
fun.
what goes on. So, but until then, for Movie Talks and Chill, we're your hosts. I'm Tony Serrato.
I'm Kevin Butts.
I'm Patrick Wall.
All right, guys, take care.